Performance Anxiety on the Pantheon Podcast Network, and I am your host, Mark. And today's guest just makes me happy. It's legendary drummer Chris Slade. From his humble beginnings, he became the go-to drummer for some of the biggest names in rock. He tells me about the entertainment gene that runs through his family, buying his way out of school so he could play drums, and how working in a shoe shop got him a gig with Tom Jones. And speaking of Tom Jones, Chris tells what really happened with the infamous Tom Jones panty story. Chris had the opportunity to record with Joe Meek, who fascinates me. And after Tom Jones, Chris found himself in a band with Olivia Newton-John, where he was paid and didn't play a note. But some of Chris's most well-known work was yet to come. He played on the biggest hits by Manfred Mann's Earth Band, yes, including Blinded by the Light. He tells an amazing story about both David Gilmour and Jimmy Page, and I discovered Chris during his time with Jimmy and the band The Firm. After that, he joined AC/DC for 5 years and played in the enormous Russian show for 1.5 million people. He has a new album out with his own band, Chris Slade Timeline. It's a double album with one disc being originals and the other covers of songs from his long and storied career, hence the name Timeline. Check out chrisslade.com for links and ways to buy the album. Check out Performance ANX on socials and performanceanx.threadless.com for merch. And if you're feeling generous, ko-fi.com/performanceanxiety to send coffee money. Now buckle up for a wild ride with Chris Slade on Performance Anxiety on the Pantheon Podcast Network.
All right, so you want me to say Chris Slade, AC/DC, all that stuff, and you're listening to Performance Anxiety podcast? Right, okay. Hi, everybody. This is Chris Slade, behind the glasses, of Performance... sorry, I'll start again. Hi, everybody. This is Chris Slade, the drummer of AC/DC and many other people, Jimmy Page, David Gilmour, many, many more. And you are listening to Performance Anxiety podcast.
I like to start things usually at the beginning and go somewhat chronological. It doesn't have to be 100% chronological because you've done so much work. I'm sure we'll be jumping back and forth a little bit at least because your career is so vast. Yeah. But I like to kind of start from the beginning and find out a little bit about when music became a big presence in your life. So your family was kind of in the creative realm. Your dad had a very interesting line of work. He was a tap dancer. Was that what he did for a living, or was that something he did on the side?
No, he worked in aero engineering for what was then British Overseas Airways. And that's what he did in a factory all day long. And then at night, he'd get his tap shoes on and sing and dance.
Well, so creativity is in your DNA then?
I would say showbiz definitely is in my DNA, yes.
When did music really start to get a hold of you? And when did you start? Did you start off with drums? Was that the very first instrument you learned to play?
It's the only instrument I've ever learned to play.
Okay.
I don't play any chordal instrument whatsoever, which I'll explain later on.
Okay.
But this thing, my brother, when I was about 11 years old, was when I started getting serious about music, maybe 10. My older brother, Danny, had a record collection of 78s in those days. 78s are those big, like 12-inch wax things that are very brittle.
Right.
I should have started with cylinders, of course, but there you go. My first cylinder I made was...
The Edison.
So that was my musical education. Bing Crosby, Pat Boone, stuff like that. Usual stuff. Frank Sinatra,
right.
You know.
Yeah.
And he had all those. He also had Elvis Presley, because this was 50s, you know.
Mm.
Yeah, mid-50s this was. Okay. 1950. So there was Elvis, and there was a few things like that. He kept expanding his record collection, of course. he even went, I'm sure, to Rock Around the Clock.
Oh, Bill
which
Haley.
is, we all know is a current thing.
Yeah. Yep.
Actually, they're still taken from that record, if you like.
It's
the feel and everything that went with it.
Oh,
and
it's foundational.
The intent that came out of it, Although they were all jazz musicians,
Oh, wow.
That invented rock and roll as they went along. I started listening to jazz because there were no, what you might call, pop drummers around in those days. There was nothing much on Pat Boone. And the only good drumming I heard was on Frank Sinatra records, with big bands and stuff.
Right.
So I went, I'll go and listen to those drummers, which I did, which was Buddy Rich. And I can't remember how I accessed that. I really can't, because there was nothing on the radio. And as I say, records weren't invented yet. They were still
liner notes on the cylinders were hard to read.
And there was humming.
Yeah.
People could hum, which is what I still do. That's how I write my songs. But we won't get into that yet.
Right.
That's a bit further on.
So how did you start? When did you get your first drums?
My brother started me off he was in a street marching band as a drummer. Oh. And he used to bring that home every weekend to be cleaned. And guess who did the cleaning?
Little brother.
So, and, his young brother. So for doing that, he taught me a few drum licks.
Oh, cool.
And then, of course, his drum was left at home when he went to school or wherever it was. So I would play it during the day on the licks he taught me. Then I became a street drummer myself with it wasn't the Boy Scouts, it was like the Boy Scouts.
Okay.
That sort of thing. Boys Brigade, it was called, actually. So a bugle band, walking the street. So I did that for a few years. I don't know why I got interested in music. I think it was because he had a collection and he also had a drum. So maybe those are great incentives. So, it was, it sort of happened organically. And I always say that drums choose you. You don't choose drums. You can try. But you won't succeed unless the drums choose you.
They didn't choose me, that's for sure. No musical instrument chose me.
When it started, I wanted to be a drummer all my life, and I haven't succeeded yet. But I'm working on it.
It's always a process, but I'm sure there's a few people who might disagree with you. What was your first professional gig?
Well, it's debatable because I joined up with this singer called Tom, who lived about half a mile from me. It's a long story, that in itself. But my father knew this guy, Tom, and he said, Tom came last night and sang with us because he was in a concert party, as it was called back then.
Okay.
Which is a tenor, maybe a tap dancer, a piano player, a comedian. And, they'd entertain the miners and steelworkers for a few hours every night.
Oh, okay.
And he used to do that. So that's where his tap dancing came in. So he used to say, Tom came last night. Tommy came last night, see? And Tommy used to come in and sing all the modern stuff, like Ghost Riders in the Sky.
Oh, wow.
Which is Frankie Lane.
Yeah.
So he was the modern stuff. So, and he was probably he was in his late teens, I would think, at that time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So eventually, he was still Tommy. He was Tommy Scott and the Senators. The band was called the Senators.
Okay.
So I joined them. I auditioned and I got the job. They said to me, can you play the start to Walk, Don't Run? And I rattled it off because it was difficult in those days. I rattled it off and they said, okay, let's go to the pub and rehearse. To get to the pub, it was two bus rides.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, with my drum kit.
Oh, geez.
Everybody took a drum and we all got on the bus. We walked half a mile to the bus stop and then changed buses another half a mile and went to rehearsals. Oh. No vehicle. Nobody had a vehicle.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
So then Tommy was a great singer and he loved rock and roll. So we used to play Jerry Lee and Little Richard and all that sort of stuff. And because Tommy had a great voice, he would throw in a ballad. And steel workers and miners loved that, and their families, right. Children as well, of course. They loved that. So we were quite successful on that sort of circuit, the working men's club circuit, Tommy Scott and the Senators. And I was earning, at the end of it, I was earning twice as much as my father was making in a factory all day long.
Wow.
So, you know, it's debatable what you call professional, what you call semi-pro, what you call amateur. You know, I was still amateur, but I was making twice the working man's wage. I had to buy my way out to school, which is 10 quid.
Oh, wow.
10 pounds, you know, like $10, you know?
Right, yeah.
And it was a good school. And the thing I learned from that good school was to think for yourself. So I thought for myself and I left school.
Good job, school.
Yeah. So I was a dropout. I hated school, to be honest. Hated it.
Yeah.
Much preferred playing drums. And this was before I'd got the job with Tommy.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I decided, as I said, I wanted to be a drummer. I had to go to youth employment people, you know, and they said, what do you really want to do? I said, I want to play drums. They went, they must have laughed for like 2 minutes and said, you can't do that. It's not a proper job. They said, you can't do that. Go and work in this shoe shop. So I did.
Oh, wow.
And that's how I got into the band, because the guitarist in the Senators came in to buy some shoes the next day after they'd sacked their drummer.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, I said, you sacked your drummer? Very quickly. And I said, you sacked your drummer? I'm a drummer. I live by Tom. So, which I did. And he arranged, I don't know how, because there were no cell phones, of course, just phone boxes at the end of your street, if you were lucky. And we arranged them. They came to the house, and then that's where Walk, Don't Run came into it. The Ventures, Walk, Don't Run.
Right, yeah.
Which is a big hit record back then.
Oh, it was
1963. And so Tom then, because he was so good, decided to try and make it in London. So the whole band went to London, and we starved.
Oh, no.
Because we couldn't get any work.
Oh, wow.
The first break was, his manager was Gordon Mills, who was also a songwriter, quite a successful songwriter.
Yes, I've heard that name.
Right. He'd written quite a few hits over the years. And he said, you got to come to London. So we went to London, and we starved and couldn't get any work whatsoever.
Oh, my gosh.
And then he got us a TV show, a BBC TV show. There was only BBC in those days.
Right, yeah.
One channel. Then it became 2 channels in the whole of Britain, I mean.
That's incredible.
Then it became 2 channels. Oh, I didn't have a TV at home until I was about 11, I think I was.
Wow. Oh, my gosh.
And as I say, no cell phones, and being thought of, never mind invented.
Right.
Along with the phonograph.
The Edison cylinders.
So the next big break we had, was supporting the Rolling Stones.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
In Oxford, in a tiny club in Oxford Street. They'd only just brought out their first record, which was a Chuck Berry song called Come On.
Right.
Because they weren't writing together yet.
Right.
The Beatles had only just started writing together, you know. George Gershwin had only just started writing together.
Ira was just born.
That was my first, what you might call, professional gig. Didn't get paid for it, but it was a professional gig. I thought you had to, get paid when you're a professional. Nope.
Man.
Nope. How much are you going to pay us to play?
I've heard that one before.
The case. That wasn't the case back then. That never happened back then.
Wow.
You were either good enough as a band or you weren't,
Man.
And so the criteria became, if you can pull some people in, you can play, but you didn't have to pay for them like you do these days sometimes.
Yeah.
You didn't have to buy 100 tickets to get a concert. Unheard of back then, unthought of. So my first professional gig was supporting the Rolling Stones.
That's incredible. That's
no money.
Jeez. So Tommy Scott eventually changes his name and becomes a little bit better known as Tom Jones. And I have a question for you, and because this fascinates me even more than Tom Jones. I read that you guys recorded some demos with Joe Meek. Did you guys?
Yes, that was our first recording experience.
That guy,
which was bizarre.
I wanted to ask if you had any memories of that, because that guy fascinates me.
He was a very strange man.
I've heard.
That's all I knew, and I knew that just by meeting him. It's like, this guy's weird, man.
Yeah. I've read that.
And he was so ahead of his time, though, with recording. He did things like Telstar by the Tornadoes, which is his big claim to fame. And that was a hit worldwide.
Yeah.
Selling millions and millions. And it was all electronic gadgetry, which he invented himself.
Yeah, this guy, he was amazing.
And we found out that his echo chamber was his bathroom, which, of course, it is today even the best echo chamber in the world, as all shower singers will tell you.
And he went on to a bit of infamy himself, so it was. I gotta figure out how to do a podcast on him, because his story is just insane.
Oh, he'll probably tell you it himself. Oh no, sorry. My
podcast doesn't have that kind of reach.
Yeah, and I'm going to put a bit in my book. Actually, I won't go into details now.
Okay,
but
fair enough.
I have. So you'll have to buy the book.
Yeah, it's an early plug for the book. That's awesome. And Tom Jones, besides being famous for his voice, he's also famous for the panty incidents, and you were there for the original panty throwing incident, which was not. It sounds like it's kind of got blown up a little bit over the years. Well,
it wasn't thrown; they weren't thrown. That goes to the Coca Cabana in New York City. The the famous Copacabana. That one, which was. Really a place where a bunch of gangsters, New York gangsters, used to hang out.
Yeah.
I know that now. Didn't know that then. That was in sort of mid-60s.
Okay.
It came, the panty thing came about the Copa has a dance floor of about 10 by 10. And that's the dance floor. And,
man,
not a lot of room. But
no.
that was Tom's stage. And it was rammed every night. We did a week there.
Okay.
It was absolutely rammed every night. And it was a big band, like a 35-piece orchestra.
Wow.
And I was the drummer. And they were on stage, and they were in front of this bandstand. There was this 10 by 10 floor, parquet flooring, wood flooring, which became the stage for many, many singers. And Tom used to go to and they were all around, everybody was set up all around in tables. And Tom used to go to any table and take a napkin off it and wipe his forehead because he sweated a lot.
Okay.
And he used to do this 5 or 6 times during a set because he does sweat like hell.
Right.
And his, he was really moving in those days. So, he sweated every song, of course. His shirt was soon soaking wet, and he used to mop his brow with this napkin. And then suddenly, this other table appeared to be put on the corner of this 10 by 10 dance floor. This only happened once, never happened before or since.
Okay.
And everybody's going, what's going on here? The waiters suddenly show up, table goes down, 2 chairs go down, and he's on the stage, this guy. Now, he's probably quite well connected. And he had this lady with him, to use the term loosely, of course.
Right.
This lady.
Yeah.
And they both sat down, and we thought, this is weird. Somebody, it's like being in a theatre, and somebody brings a table and chairs and sits and watches a show on the stage.
Yes.
That's what it amounted to. And Tom was going around picking up his napkins, mopping his forehead, and he reached this table and went to, I was right in the corner, the left-hand corner as you look out, and he grabbed the napkin, and she said, oh, wait a minute. And he was going, what the thing? And she stood up, took her panties off, and gave them to Tom to wipe his forehead. So he said, oh, thanks, love. He wiped his forehead and gave them back to her.
Oh, my God.
Now, whether she put them back on, I have no idea. I never asked her.
That's lost to history.
But, yeah.
Oh, my God. So
that's where the panty throwing thing comes from.
That's where they
don't even know why they're throwing panties.
No.
They just vaguely know this story. And I know that is true because I was there.
Right. Exactly. All right. So you leave Tom. You played on his biggest hits from the 60s.
It's not unusual to be loved by anyone. It's not unusual to have fun with anyone. But when I see you hanging about with anyone, it's not unusual to see me cry.
And then you left and you ended up playing. And I've got a question about this because I don't know what this band is, but it's Tomorrow with Olivia Newton-John. Was that a real band, or was it more of a movie like the Monkees kind of a thing?
It was a Monkees type thing.
Okay.
I wasn't in the movie. They'd done the movie, and Livy was in that, of course. And we rehearsed a few times, but we didn't do any gigs whatsoever. We did rehearse because we thought we'd be doing gigs, but all we did was personal appearances all over Britain.
Okay.
For the movie, to publicize the movie,
right?
Even going somewhere. we'd have to do interviews and things like that.
Oh,
Especially Livy, of course.
right. Yeah, makes sense.
But they paid very, very well. Being a movie project, they paid absolutely amazingly.
To not play anything.
So I was there, not playing any gigs. I was probably in it for 6 months, a year at most, I would say.
Okay. And
then I got a call from that finished. And then I got a call from Manfred Mann of 60s fame.
Right.
He was a big pop star in Britain, Manfred Mann, big name, because they had nearly as many hit records as the Beatles at that time.
Oh, wow. They
weren't writers themselves, but Manfred used to get songs like from Bob Dylan and stuff like that, and other writers, and jazz them up a bit and make hits out of them. And he did that. Manfred Mann, did that. They took his name, by the way, Manfred's name, for the band.
Right.
And he was the sort of leader as well. So he started what became Manfred Mann's Earth Band. And
you had a hand in naming that band.
Yes, we were all throwing things in the ring. You know, we wanted somebody to rhyme with Mann, and we wanted to keep Manfred's name in it, although it was useless for getting us any gigs. We couldn't get arrested.
Oh, really?
Because everybody thought it was the pop group from the 60s. But he had a bit of a name, you know, as a musician. So we all decided it should be Manfred Mann's something. Headband. You know, anything. Knocking shop. Anything. Everybody came up with all sorts of names, you know. How about blogs? You know, Manfred Mann's blogs? No, I don't think so. So I just suddenly went, how about Earth Band? And not meaning anything at all, you know. So we went with that, and I was with Earth Band for 7 years after that.
And you're in there with their biggest hit, particularly Blinded by the Light, which is woven into my childhood. That song was everywhere, and there aren't a whole lot of songs.
And it still is.
Yeah.
It haunts me wherever I go.
I think it haunts him, too. I mean, it's one of those songs with the most misheard lyrics I've known.
Oh, yeah. Of course.
Go-kart Mozart was checking out the weather chart, see if it was safe outside. And little early birdie came by in his curly whirly and asked me if I needed a ride. Wrapped up like a deuce, another runner in the night, blinded by the light. Wrapped up like a deuce, another runner in the night.
But we didn't know what the lyrics were. There were no lyrics on the sleeve. We were given, Manfred and I were given copies of Greetings from Asbury Park.
Okay.
And I don't know if they're there now, but on the original cover, there were no lyrics. Nobody did that in those days, you know? Yeah. And there was no inner sleeve with any lyrics on it or any information whatsoever. It's not like you can pick up your cell phone and go, hey, Bruce, what did you say there? What were the lyrics, man?
Right.
You know, you could never do that.
Yeah. He
was in America somewhere. But I got the closest to it, which was I had wrapped up. I had wrapped up like a deuce. Like when you in Britain, when you wrap your hand of cards, when you're playing cards and you throw them in, I'm wrapping. I'm going to wrap.
Okay. Wow.
With a W. Yeah. W-R-A-P. Yeah. I'm wrapping this in. So I came up with wrapped up like a deuce. Deuce being a 2 in cards.
Right. Okay.
I'd never heard then of Deuce Coupe.
Ah, little hot rod.
Yeah, never heard of it. So it wasn't a British phrase that we used at all. So wrapped in like a deuce became the lyric for that whole line. And we went over and over and over. You got to move the needle off the track, put it back on the thing for it to play again. And we did that, must have been hundreds of times, trying to find out what these lyrics were. So, it was very, very difficult. Nobody thought of going, we'd like to do this song. Who's the publisher? It wasn't done in those days. You didn't know you could bring a publishing house and go, I need the lyrics for Thingy,
Yeah.
or these days, you go on the internet and find the lyrics for Thingy.
Yeah, exactly.
But the internet wasn't invented yet, folks.
Nope, not in the early 70s. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
So, it makes these days it's so much easier to do things like that.
Yeah.
Like find out, you can Google, what's the lyrics to Blinded by the Lights?
Right. What?
And they'll go, wrapped up like a douche.
Yeah.
Another thing that made it complicated was Chris Thompson, the singer, has a New Zealand accent. And another thing that complicated it was that the recording head wasn't set up properly.
Oh, really?
And so it made everything very sibilant.
Oh.
So that combined, wrapped up like a deuce became something else.
Yeah. It became history. Musical history is what it became.
Yeah. Most misunderstood lyric of all time.
Really is. It really is.
And I'm sure Bruce hates it because he wrote it I think just guitar or something, but a very simple shuffle song.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember hearing. And Manfred heard the pop song in that. He did a fantastic arrangement. We all helped with the production of it. We all put our ideas into it, as we always did with any Earth Band song. And that was the outcome. And you hear it 6 times a day on radio, on American radio, certainly.
You still do.
Even if you turn the dial, it'll come on in the next 4 songs.
Oh, yeah. It was omnipresent back when I was a kid. It was amazing, and it's one of the few.
It was crazy then. That was like 1 a minute.
Oh, yeah.
Blinded was on.
It exploded. Why did you end up leaving Manfred Mann at Manfred Mann's Earth Band?
He told us he wanted to retire.
Oh.
And he was like 50 or something. I don't know how old he was. He might have been 40. I don't know. But he'd had enough of the music business. He wanted to retire. He's 88 now, and he's still working with Earth Band.
He didn't say when he wanted to retire. He just said, I want to retire.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And he's still doing gigs,
That's amazing. He's like the John Mayall, who unfortunately, just passed. So.
Yes, he did a few days ago, didn't he? Unfortunately.
Yeah. So end of an era. My gosh.
Yeah. I remember seeing him in the early 60s in London at the, let me think, Flamingo Club in Water Street. Used to see him all the time, and, Clapton playing guitar and stuff like that, You see lots of people like Fleetwood Mac or,
the original Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah, well, I don't mean the band, I mean the people. Mick Fleetwood and
John McVie.
I think at one time he was playing drums for Mail. I'm not quite sure, but maybe he never did. I don't know. And John McVie was. Did he?
I think he did. I'd have to look that up.
You can tell because he can't fit in his drum kit. He's too bleeding tall.
No kidding. That dude's huge. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So after Manfred Mann, you ended up doing some other gigs. There was Frankie Miller, Kai Olsen, Uriah Heep, and Gary Newman. I mean, these are some pretty amazing artists you've worked with.
Yeah, well, the first two you mentioned were sessions, just like 3-hour sessions. That was it.
Wow.
I stopped doing those in the 60s. I didn't like them. I didn't like them at all. Uriah Heep, it was a band, and I knew them, and we used to work, Earth Band and Heep used to work together on shows sometimes.
Okay.
And so I knew them. I still auditioned, even though I knew them. And, I knew who they were. We got on well together. Mick Box is a very funny guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, funny as hell, actually.
That's awesome.
Gary Newman, I did an album. I did one album with Heap. I was in the band for about 3 years maximum. And Gary Newman, I did an album with.
Yeah, the ISS.
And he asked me if I knew any fretless bass players. And I knew Pino Palladino.
Yes.
And he wasn't a bass player yet. He'd never played bass on anything.
Oh, wow.
I knew him as he was a guitarist. And he's tremendous.
What fascinates me is the next period, because that's where I really actually became introduced to you musically. You know, I'd heard you with Manfred Mann's Earth Band, but I wasn't as deep into music as I would become later on when you joined The Firm. And that's one of the first things I ever had of Jimmy Page's, because when the first album came out was 84, I think, and I was 11. So 85.
That was 85, because 84 I was with David Gilmour.
Okay, yes. So that's kind of what I wanted to ask you about, because the story that I've heard is that in one day you ended up being able to accept offers from two of the most amazing guitarists on the planet.
Yep.
Can you just relay that story to me, because it's fascinating?
Well, the phone rings, of course, home phone, no cell phone still.
Right.
Ring, ring, pick it up. Hello, it's David Gilmour here. And, I'd met him before, so I knew what he sounded like. And I knew it was him, when somebody winding me up.
Right.
Like a friend, a good friend does that to you, don't they? So, yes, I'm putting a band together and to do a tour, because I want to promote my latest album. Yeah, I'd love to, Dave. Fantastic. That's tremendous. When, where, how, why, when, what, which.
Oh, yeah.
I said, I've got to tell you, Dave, you know that I'm in Mick Ralph's band at the moment. And he said, oh, yeah, Mick's doing it too. Don't worry. Because they were good mates.
Wow.
Mick and Dave, yeah. And they probably still are. Although I think Ralphie is not doing too good health-wise at the moment. But I'm sure they're still friends. And so that was fine. So I said to the wife, okay, we're going on the pub. I'm going on the road with Dave Gilmour. Way! So we went to the pub, had lunch, come back, ring, ring, pick the phone up. Hello? Hello, Jimmy Page here.
It's mind-blowing.
It's like, oh, hello, Jim. I know this is you, Fred. Get off the bloody line, will you? No. Really. It is Jimmy Page.
Oh, my.
I'd never met him, right? I'd never met him.
Wow.
And, okay. Ooh, it's Jimmy Page. Me and Paul Rogers putting a band together, and we'd like you to play drums. Silence from me, like, I can't believe this. Yeah, Jim, thank you very much, mate. I really appreciate it. No audition.
Wow.
And it's like, we put the band together. I said, you won't believe this, Jim, but in the hour and a half ago, I accepted a tour with David Gilmour. Silence. That's okay. We'll wait.
Oh, man.
And it's like, Jesus, I can't believe this.
That's incredible.
And I thought, honesty's the best policy sort of thing.
Yeah.
So the same as I did with Gilmour. I'm with Mick Ross.
Yeah.
So they waited. And how long's the tour for? 3 months, which it was going to be.
Yeah.
And in the end, the tour kept getting extended and extended.
Wow.
And he said, "Oh, it's okay. We're in no rush. We'll wait for you to come back." And in the end, they waited for 9-10 months before I came back off the road.
Wow.
And so it was about a year before we got the band together.
Oh.
It didn't have a name yet. And that's where I come in again.
Oh, really? Okay.
So we'd done a few tracks, we recorded in the studio, and we said, we still don't know what to call this band. Tony Franklin was involved, we rehearsed. I knew Paul Rogers from before, when he was in Free. I don't think he knew me, but I knew him, of course.
Okay.
Because I had hair in those days, I think. Oh, I had hair. No, I was bald in the Firm. Yeah.
Yeah.
But before that, I had hair, so people don't equate the same person.
That's a good point.
So I knew Paul was in Free. He was opening the show. And Earthband second and Deep Purple top of the bill.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that was a tour of Australia. And that was 1971. And that's the first time I met Paul Rogers.
Okay.
And they were a really good band, Free.
Oh,
really
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think. So we got to put a name to this band. What do you think? And again, everybody threw names in. It's like blah, blah, blah. And I remember I just went, how about the Firm? And now the Firm does not mean a business. The Firm are a bunch of East End gangsters, East End of London gangsters.
Oh.
And they called themselves the Firm, notoriously called themselves the Firm. They were the Cray twins, and they called themselves the Firm. So to Jim, that was a heavy name.
Yeah.
So he jumped on it straight away and said, that's it. So we went with the Firm, and Paul didn't say anything. We were all putting names in,
Yeah.
blogs,
Yeah.
whatever. But anyway, Jim went for that.
Well, I'm not uptight, not unattractive. Turn me on tonight, 'cause I'm a radioactive. Well, it's not a fight, and I'm not your captive. Turn me loose tonight.
And then there was that the amazing first album cover with that the logo was the entire cover, which I just fell in love with.
Yeah, which I sort of had a hand in that.
Oh, really?
Because I've always been a bit of a designer, and I said, why don't you put it slightly off center, make it a big thing, and put it slightly off center,
Yeah.
And that's what they did.
It's fantastic. It's brilliant. It stuck with me for sure.
Right, I thought it was good too, personally.
So,
even though I thought it.
Yeah. you could be a fan of your own work.
The second album was called Mean Business,
right?
Which was Paul's phrase, and I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, me too.
Because it means so many things. We mean business. It's a mean business. All those things, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And the press had a field day with that, along with the name of the firm. They're in it for the money, you know, they're only after the money, you know, as if Jimmy Page wanted money.
Yeah, exactly. You know? Dude doesn't want for anything.
No.
So
I wouldn't think so.
When you guys went on tour, they didn't play any of their old music, at least none that was known, because Midnight Moonlight was a Zeppelin demo to start with. So you technically kind of played one Led Zeppelin song, a version of it. But was that surprising that they didn't want to play any of their old tracks, or did you kind of expect that?
Yeah, well, we in rehearsal, we tried a few things.
Oh, okay.
And, you know, I had nothing to do with the running of the band.
Right.
Or Tony. You know, that was down to Pagey and Paul, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, I wanted it to go on for longer, of course, and so did Tony. But obviously, Pagey and Paul decided they didn't want to, and it's their prerogative.
Yeah.
It was their band.
It was so interesting, though, because the furthest they went back wasn't any Led Zeppelin or Bad Company or Free. It was the Death Wish 2 soundtrack. They played a couple of tracks off of that, but...
Right,
that's a strange one to go back. That's our cutoff point, is this soundtrack. Yeah,
well, it's funny. I don't know. You have to ask Pagey that.
I would love to.
No idea. Yeah.
Now, did you know going in that the band was going to be kind of a short-lived project, or was that something that they decided as the band was going?
No, not at all. And to be honest, people say that. I don't think it's short-lived. It was 2 years, and it was 2 albums. It's a lot more than a lot of bands get.
That's a good point.
And nothing said about that, but you know, because it's this band that's like, I don't know, you just can't win.
Yeah.
And with Timeline, we do film stuff on stage.
Oh, awesome!
Along with all sorts of other stuff. David Gilmour, you know, Uriah Heep, all sorts of. We mix it up and we do different things on different nights.
Okay.
But, and half of the set, we do a 2-hour set. Half the set is AC/DC. And the other half is, and we don't do them in halves. We never take a break. So I've done it in a running order that I feel, and it's been proved with time, that is entertaining to people. So, you know, we do some Zeppelin, and we do some Floyd, and Uriah Heep, as I said, and a few other things like that. Whatever springs to mind.
Oh, that is awesome.
This band is so good as musicians that they can adapt from AC/DC to, say, Tom Jones if it was needed, you know? Yeah. And the thing is, they are not just able to do it, they want to do it. Because some people go, oh, man, no, I can't play that because I'm a heavy player, man.
Yeah.
You know, I can't play those chords in that. You know?
Yeah.
And the thing I've learned in life is you've got to be adaptable and you got to play whatever comes up.
Yeah.
Because Gary Newman is completely different to Jimmy Page.
Oh, yeah. But you guys are professionals.
You've got to be able to adapt. And luckily, my grounding in jazz in the beginning has stood me in good stead. Oh, that was difficult to say. Yeah. Stood me in good stead.
Well, one of the things that I thought was really cool was I'm such a huge fan of the Firm. I love both albums. I've got bootlegs of some live shows, got bootlegs of demos. It's one of the first things I remember Jimmy Page being in because I hadn't gotten into Zeppelin yet. I was listening to what was on the radio, and Radioactive got me into the band. But I remember seeing the video for Thunderstruck and going, oh my God, that's Chris Slade. That's the drummer from The Firm. And that was really, I wasn't into AC/DC at that time. And then I saw that. I'm like, oh my, that's a drummer from one of my favorite bands. And I was like, all right.
You're not supposed to do that, you see. They're supposed to have a designated drummer. Okay, we want the Phil Rudd is the designated drummer.
I know.
For AC/DC. But he wasn't available, people.
Nope. But you ended up playing with them for 5 years, 2 studio albums, 2 live albums, and in that enormous Russian show where there's 1.5 million people?
Yeah, was it Tushina Airport, I think. It was a disused airfield from the Second World War.
Oh.
And it was big enough because the audience was over 1 million people.
That's
CNN
amazing.
did a count. They had a hot air balloon above the show, and they did a count.
That's insane.
And so they came up with 1 million, more than 1 million.
That's unbelievable.
It is. And it went off over the horizon, and we were up on a stage, The crowd were way over there, And they had, the PA was staggered, and all the equipment was brought from Europe in an Antonov aircraft.
Oh, wow.
Which is the biggest airplane you can get.
Yeah.
Certainly freight airplane. Well, it is, I think. And I didn't know, but there's only one in the world. I didn't know that.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
No, everybody can check me. This will give it something to do. Googling, folks. Get Googling. How many Antonovs are there? Yeah. It's NOV, by the way. So, because I want to buy one.
Yeah.
It could be useful for me.
The one.
Yeah, just the one. Yeah.
So you ended up playing with them for 5 years, and then they brought Phil back, but they kind of wanted you on the side. Is that what's the case?
Yeah. Well, Malcolm called me actually, and he said that, and he said, "There's nothing you haven't done, or nothing you're not doing, or anything like that. We're going to try Phil out." And I went, "Well, I'm gone now." They didn't expect that. He didn't expect that.
Wow.
And I knew that it's difficult to make that call because I've had to make a few times myself, and it's very difficult. And I felt for Mal, actually. I said, "Look, I know how bad this is." So I was feeling for him more than for me. But I thought, well, I'm off. I'm not going to hang around. Yeah. He said, no, we'll keep paying you. We'll keep paying you. No, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, Mal.
Yeah, I can understand.
And it wasn't broke. I was doing the demos for Ballbreaker album, which Phil had to learn, which gave me great pleasure. I went to visit him after I was out of the band and Phil was back. I went to visit him in London, and I walked into Cliff's apartment, and I could hear my demos being played. Of course, it wouldn't be an album, because I hadn't recorded it yet.
Yeah.
And I pointed to the ceiling and went like, what? He said, "Oh, yeah, that's Phil's apartment."
Oh, geez.
So he was upstairs, wood shedding, if you like, on the demos that I had spent the last 3 months doing. And then they tried, and Mal said to me, "Look, we don't know if he can play drums." I said, "That's your problem now, mate, not mine. Sorry."
Yeah, exactly.
You just give me a vote of no confidence. I'm off.
Yeah. I can't blame you on that one.
Yeah.
But that's not the end of the story.
They waited 50 years and then asked me back.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's not the end of the story. So you ended up playing again. How was that? Because that was with Axl Rose on vocals, right?
Yes.
How was the feel of that without Brian there?
It was great. Don't get me wrong. Axl is not Brian. Right. Brian is not Axl. Right. It's not a competition. Music is not a competition, believe it or not.
Regardless what the labels say.
Yeah. And, you can have a personal preference to somebody's singing, but you can't say definitively, this guy is better than this guy. Not with any instrument, voices, drummers, anything.
Right.
That is a subjective opinion, your opinion, not an objective opinion, because everybody has a different opinion.
You are correct.
You might agree with this guy over here or this guy over here, but it doesn't mean it's real or truthful. So, I shook his hand, and I can usually tell people as soon as I shake their hand, tell what people are like. And I shook his hand and thought, this guy's okay. I'd heard all the horror stories.
Yeah.
And then he started singing. I was like, wow, this guy can sing. Now, as I said, he's not Brian. He didn't even try to be Brian. It was a guy singing AC/DC songs.
Yeah.
And I've done it before with some really good singers. And, it's different. It's not AC/DC. It's different.
Right.
With Timeline, we've got a singer that does AC/DC voice really well.
Yes, you do.
You can hear it, folks. You can hear it on Timescape.
And we're going to get to that in just a second, too. So, because I definitely don't want to run out of time before we get to that. So.
Okay. So, Axel was fantastic. He was never late, ever.
Oh, that's awesome.
Ever. Not even to rehearsals. And he used to warm up 2 hours before every show.
Oh, wow.
With his keyboard in his room. Because I know he did, because I was in the room next to him.
Nice. Oh,
so
man.
Like, Axel's off again, so we'll be going soon. So 2 hours every night.
Oh, that is awesome.
And he had his singing coach with him on the road. He took this very, very seriously.
Oh,
and I think he did a great job.
Well,
so
for what
that's just my subjective opinion, folks.
Right. He was Axl Rose singing AC/DC. He wasn't trying to be Bon or Brian. He was being Axl.
Yes. He had great respect for Bon, and he had great respect for AC/DC.
Yeah.
Because he probably grew up on it. You know?
For sure. I started looking at some of these guitarists you played with. It's an incredible list. I mean, you've got David Gilmour, Jimmy Page. Let's see.
Gary Moore.
Yeah, Gary Moore, Angus Young, Guthrie Govan in Asia. I mean, and Michael Schenker. I mean,
Guthrie is tremendous.
I love Guthrie's playing. Oh my gosh.
He gave our guitarist, James Cornford, when he first started, when he was 11, 12, 13, he gave James lessons.
Oh, wow.
That's how I know, it's... and he gave him lots of advice as well. One thing was, he said to James, was, you can only be a musician if you can't do anything else. And that's so true. I can't do a damn thing. Well, I said earlier on about playing an instrument. I did classical guitar for about 2 years, but I didn't go anywhere with it.
Yeah.
But I just loved the sound of that. I loved classical guitar and cello and all that sort of stuff, but never got into playing them. So, and I really enjoyed doing it. It's just when you're on the road all the time, you can't get the practice time in anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Like you could when you were a kid. So,
when music becomes your job, it's a little tougher.
Yeah. Oh, yes, it is. Although I found the classical quite easy. And I had a good teacher. Actually, he's a very, very good classical player called Kevin Peake from Australia. And he's a great classical guitarist. He's known as one, actually.
So when did you start putting together the timeline?
12 years ago.
Okay, 12. And what made you want to do this? Was it to play a lot of the different songs from your past?
Yes. I wanted to play my lifetime. I wanted people who wanted to, for one, and could switch between AC/DC and, say, Tom Jones or Uriah Heep or something.
Okay.
But first they have to want to, you know.
Okay.
I'm a heavy player. I play heavy, man. I'm just, I can't play that crap, you know. Sorry. Yeah. It was number one crap. I don't want to do it. But, you know, that's an attitude. I'd had AC/DC tribute bands, if you like.
Okay.
Wrong word. In the past, in America, with various people. I've had about 2 incarnations of that, 2 or 3 incarnations of that when I lived in California.
Oh, okay.
Because I lived in California and I lived in Las Vegas, me and my missus.
Oh,
so,
wow.
you know, so I wanted to play some other songs. I wanted to play Earth Band. I wanted to play Uriah Heep along with AC/DC. It's all great music.
Oh, yeah.
And so I wanted to be able to entertain people with it for the rest of my days. As I say, I haven't succeeded yet, but I'm working on it.
Well, as I said earlier, I think some people would beg to differ with you. But I think this album is really cool because it's half of it is original, half of it is covers. And what I love is the fact that you seem to incorporate elements of everything you've played sometimes in one song, like the AC/DC Razor's Edge cover. I don't know where that like prog solo came in the middle, because I can't imagine hearing AC/DC do that. But that is
the keyboard solo.
That is so cool. I loved it.
Well, we had a gap of music. Like, what should we do with that? I know. We put a keyboard solo in there. You know? And Mike, the keyboard player, Mike Clark, also plays guitar, second guitar on AC/DC. I didn't know.
Oh, wow.
But that's where he started being a musician, was learning AC/DC on guitar. I didn't know this. I didn't even know he played guitar. So I said, we got to get a second guitarist, you know, because you know, you can't play AC/DC without 2 guitars. And he said, Slade, I started off playing guitar before I was a keyboard player with AC/DC. So I know all the songs.
Oh, my gosh.
And, you know, cool. Dear, oh dear, that was like, wow, I didn't know that.
That's awesome.
You know, he can't be Malcolm Young, but who is Malcolm Young?
Exactly.
You know, Nobody can be. It's impossible. He was a genius. His timing was impeccable. His feel was tremendous. He never sped up or slowed down, a trick that lots of people cannot do.
Oh, yeah. AC/DC wouldn't have been AC/DC without him.
No, he's the driving force.
No.
He is why they were called the best rhythm section in the world.
Absolutely.
It was because of Malcolm.
Absolutely. And the Razor's Edge is great. However, my favorite cover on the album is the Asia song you guys do, Free. I love that.
Yeah.
In the pastures of doom, fields of our heroes, the land won by few.
Yeah, we love playing it, and that's why it's on the album. Because through the last 12 years, 10 years certainly, we've recorded in the studio But it's always been covers, so we got tons of covers in the studio, probably not yet mixed properly. So these are the only ones that were mixed.
Oh, okay.
And we did them. We always record. Well, if we record live, which some of these songs are recorded live,
jeez,
we put them through a desk to try to catch the excitement.
Yeah.
So it's a live album in that respect, unlike Frampton Comes Alive, which is a studio album, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yes. Oh, they've admitted to that.
Wow.
I've seen Frampton on stage in the States doing weekend shows, and he's a great personality on stage.
I've seen him once.
Right.
He was awesome.
I've been on the same show with him, and he's a really cheeky chappy on stage.
Yeah. So I have some questions about the originals. Is this your first time writing music, or were you writing music earlier with other bands?
I've always written lyrics, and I've written the odd song here and there through the last 50 years, but it's only one or two. And so 2.5 years ago, I had this idea, and it became this original side. And there's more in the can, but that's all we could do to finish in time, to get it mixed in time.
Okay.
But I thought that Questions and Joybringer, which were Earthband songs, I wrote the lyrics for. So to me, that's close enough for, for jazz. That's close enough for jazz. That's the old thing when it's tuning wise. That's close enough for jazz, man. Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
It's an old joke. Along with, hey man, play that clink clink stuff, or you can get paid tonight. Or clink 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 clink.
Oh, well, I wanted to tell you that my favorite originals on this, I love Joybringer. I think that's amazing. But I also love the song that you end up singing on, Time Flies. Those two are my top two favorites on the album. So is that your singing, your lead singing debut?
Yes, that is.
Oh, awesome.
Take your time.
And we haven't done it live yet, but we intend to.
Oh, wow. Are you going to be singing? Because you have two singers in the band already.
There's two singers in the band. I always demo the songs for each of the singers.
Okay.
And then I think, this is a Bun Davis vocal, needs a Bun Davis vocal, or this needs a Stevie G vocal. Right. Stevie also plays bass in the band at the moment.
Okay.
And, as I say, they're all great musicians. But, yes, I always demo the songs. And to a man, the guy said, well, look, that's not anybody's song except yours. That's yours, Slade. You should sing it.
That's awesome.
So, and I had done a pretty good demo, and it just came from an idea with echo, actually. Da 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 da, and I thought, that'll make that into a song, which I did. And I also like Time Flies, and so does my missus. And also, End of Eternity would come straight after it. I think is a great last track. says it all, actually, because I'm quite philosophical, and
I can tell.
I've done a lot of meditation and all that stuff. So to me, it really fits the band. It fits my philosophy, and it also suits physics, actually, which is, funny enough, all the band's hobby, if you like.
Oh, really?
We're all into stuff like that.
Oh,
One of our friends is a physicist, a German physicist, and he's a really good friend of ours. We played at his birthday party in Germany a couple of years back.
Oh, my gosh.
So we're very interested in all that sort of stuff.
That is
so.
Well,
it all goes into that song, Time Flies.
It kind of all fits with the album then, the whole concept of the album.
Yeah. I was really pleased the way it hung together. Jawbringer is a Gustav Holst melody.
Yes.
And we had to get permission to do that from his daughter, Imogen, which we did. I don't know if you have to these days, but he did it back in those days, 70s. And Questions is although it's got Mann on it, Manfred didn't write the melody. He found the melody that fitted to my poem perfectly. So that Questions was a poem first.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And Manfred said, I found a great melody for your poem. And he had, which was Schubert's third impromptu, it's called. And I've called it Schubert's third racket on the album. Basil Fawlty.
Where can people find the album and purchase it?
Okay, folks, this is where you can buy the album, Timescape, on chrisslade.com.
Nice.
Yeah,
looks awesome.
And Chris Slade, the Chris Slade Timeline on Facebook. And Brave Words Records, who are doing downloads. So if you want the physical thing, go to chrisslade.com. If you want a download, go to Brave. The link also for the downloads will be on chrisslade.com very soon. It's not there yet, but the CD is, but the downloads will be after this weekend. Okay. So depending on when this is broadcast,
it'll be up then, yeah.
That's about it. And Chris Slade Timeline on Facebook is where all our details are about gigs and stuff like that we're doing. Where's that? I was going to ask you, where does performance anxiety come from?
That was supposed to originally be what I was going to be asking everybody, if they ever suffered from that, or how they got over it. And it became so conversational, I forgot to ask. And so I'd already had artwork made and everything. So I'm just like, oh well, I guess it's...
I could answer now because I've never had performance anxiety in my life.
Oh, that's great.
It might be arrogant, although I'm not an arrogant person, and I'll beat you up if you say I am.
It was wonderful to meet you, and thank you so much for all of your music.
All right, mate, and thank you too.